It didn't take a single insult. No yelling, no social media rant, just one speech. And Donald Trump completely lost it. Michelle Obama didn't even mention his name, yet somehow the former president knew she was talking about him. And the moment her words hit the headlines, Trump unraveled like clockwork. What followed wasn't just a meltdown. It was a public spectacle. Rage posts, wild accusations, and a string of desperate interviews that only made things worse. Because deep down, Trump knows the truth. Michelle Obama doesn't need to attack him. She just has to speak, and every time she does, he spirals. This isn't about politics. It's about something way more personal. Respect, relevance, and the one woman Trump can't seem to shake. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't point fingers. Michelle Obama stood behind a podium calm and collected and delivered a speech that hit harder than any political ad ever could. She spoke about what real leadership looks like, about dignity, restraint, and the kind of moral clarity that doesn't need to shout to be heard. There was no mention of Trump, no direct jabs, but every word landed like a punch to the gut. Because when Michelle described chaos disguised as confidence, when she talked about people who confuse power with purpose, everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. It was precise, it was devastating, and it was unmistakable. And while the crowd leaned in, listening with quiet intensity somewhere in Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump was already preparing to fire back, not with class or facts, but with the only weapon he knows, outrage. But what came next was even more revealing. He couldn't hold it in. Within hours of Michelle's speech making headlines, Trump did what he always does. He snapped. The typos were flying. The caps lock was stuck. The insults, predictable. Nasty. Jealous. Overrated. The same tired words he always throws at women who dare to challenge him. But this wasn't just another angry post. It was a meltdown in real time, witnessed by millions. While Michelle was being praised for her grace and composure, Trump was firing off rage-fueled Truth Social posts that read like a man unraveling. He wasn't responding to policy. He was reacting to pain, personal, bruised ego kind of pain, and you could feel it. Because here's the truth. Trump doesn't fear criticism. He fears irrelevance. And when Michelle Obama speaks, she doesn't just make him look small. She reminds everyone how little power loudness really holds. But his outburst didn't just stop at social media. He was about to get dragged into an even deeper humiliation. It was supposed to be her big moment, a poised introduction to the country, a chance to step into history. Instead, it became one of the most embarrassing moments of the entire Trump era. Melania Trump stood on stage, delivering what was meant to be an empowering speech. But almost immediately something felt off. The words, familiar, too familiar. Within hours, side-by-side clips began to surface, and the internet exploded. Melania's speech wasn't just inspired by Michelle Obama's 2008 address, it was nearly word for word. You work hard for what you want in life. That your word is your bond. Even the rhythm was identical. It wasn't just plagiarism. It was poetic irony. Melania, wife of the man trying to erase the Obama legacy, had unknowingly borrowed from the very woman Trump couldn't stop attacking. And the backlash? Brutal. Late-night hosts had a field day. Social media turned it into a meme factory. The Trump team scrambled, blaming speechwriters, deflecting to the media, calling it a coincidence. But the damage was done. Michelle didn't have to say a word. Her original speech had already buried the copy. And for Trump, the embarrassment didn't end there, because the internet was just getting warmed up. The internet didn't just react. It erupted. Within minutes, the side-by-side comparisons were everywhere. Michelle Obama in her iconic blue dress, poised and powerful. Melania in a nearly identical outfit, mouthing the same lines like a bad school presentation. The captions were ruthless. The blueprint. The Xerox. Brutal. Relentless. Unforgettable. Memes flooded timelines like a digital avalanche. Clips of Melania's awkward delivery were mashed up with Michelle's smooth confidence, TikToks, reaction videos, late-night monologues. It was no longer just a political moment, it was cultural comedy gold. But the worst part for Trump? He wasn't in control of the narrative. The man who prided himself on branding, on dominating headlines, was now the butt of the joke. And no matter how hard he tried to shift the blame or change the subject, people weren't letting it go. Because this wasn't just about Melania copying a speech. It was about the glaring contrast between borrowed lines and original impact, between imitation and authenticity. Michelle didn't need to respond. She didn't need to tweet or explain. The internet did it for her, and it was vicious, but behind all the jokes was a deeper truth. Michelle's influence didn't just survive, it soared, and that fact alone pushed Trump even further over the edge. Michelle Obama doesn't need headlines. She doesn't chase cameras or punchlines, and that's exactly why she owns the room before she even walks in. When she speaks, it's not loud, it's powerful, it's measured, intelligent, and human in a way that makes people stop scrolling and start listening. Across political lines, generations, even continents, Michelle commands something Trump has spent his entire life trying to manufacture: respect. She doesn't demand it, she earns it. Not with bluster or bragging, but with substance, real words, real values, and a presence that makes you feel like what she's saying actually matters. And that's the part that eats away at him. Because while Trump floods his social feed with desperate self-promotion, Michelle lets her impact speak for itself. No gimmicks, no cheap shots, just substance. Every book she's written has soared. Every speech goes viral, not because it's controversial, but because it's clear, compelling, and deeply human. She speaks like someone who's lived through pressure, not someone trying to outrun it. Meanwhile, Trump clings to relevance like a lifeline, grasping for the spotlight in any way he can. He throws out insults, he spins conspiracies, he turns every appearance into a rally of rage. But Michelle? She can disappear for months and still be one of the most admired women on the planet the moment she returns. That contrast isn't just frustrating for Trump, it's unbearable. Because for a man who's obsessed with controlling the narrative, there's nothing more threatening than someone who can dominate the conversation without saying his name. Michelle doesn't need to trend, she became the standard. And every time she steps onto a stage or releases a message, the public isn't just watching, they're waiting. She represents something steady, something trustworthy, something authentic, the complete opposite of the chaos he brings with him. And here's the kicker. She's not even trying to compete. She's not in the race. She's not on the ballot. She's not shouting over anyone. And yet, somehow, she's always one step ahead. Compare that to Trump's world of constant noise and forced relevance. He built his image on branding. She built hers on values. He surrounds himself with loyalists. She surrounds herself with people who challenge and respect her. He craves applause. She earns admiration. It's not even close. And deep down, he knows it. He knows that every outburst, every angry post, every insult he throws in her direction only makes him look smaller, because it reminds everyone just how effortlessly she holds power. And that quiet dominance, that unshakable calm, that refusal to play by his rules, that's what drives him mad. Because Trump needs the battle, Michelle doesn't even need to show up to win it. It's one thing to disagree on policy. It's another to watch two marriages unfold side by side and feel like they're from entirely different worlds. When Michelle Obama speaks about Barack, there's admiration in her voice. Not performance, not obligation. Just a genuine respect between two people who built something real together. She talks about the hard days, the nights when politics felt like too much. And through it all, there's always one constant. They leaned on each other. You don't have to be a political analyst to see it, just watch the way they interact. Quiet gestures, shared smiles, knowing glances. They feel like teammates, like best friends, like partners who built a life from the inside out. Now compare that to the cold formality of Donald and Melania. It's not subtle, it's painfully obvious. The hand swats on national television, the distant body language, the way Melania steps just far enough to the side so their shoulders don't touch during photo ops, as if intimacy is something to be avoided, especially when the cameras are on. And the most damning part? The world has seen it over and over again. Inaugurations, rallies, international trips. Moments that should show closeness instead reveal a woman who looks like she's just counting the minutes until it's over. When Trump speaks about Melania, it's rarely with warmth. It's transactional. How beautiful she is, how admired she is, how people love her. But it always loops back to him. It's not about her character, her mind, her support. It's about what she adds to his image. Michelle, on the other hand, rarely talks about herself without mentioning Barack, not because she has to, but because she chooses to, because they are a team, because one's success has never come at the other's expense. When she tells stories about their early years, living in a small apartment, juggling student loans, navigating public life with their kids in tow, it resonates, not just as nostalgia, but as proof. Their connection was forged long before the cameras ever showed up. And that's the part Trump can't fake. He can build gold-plated towers and slap his name on stakes and planes, but he can't manufacture what Michelle and Barack have. Because love isn't a brand. It's not a campaign. And it doesn't work on a teleprompter. Even Trump's own supporters have noticed. The awkward glances, the stiff embraces, the public silence from Melania as scandal after scandal broke. It's like watching two people stuck in a contract, not a marriage. And when Michelle speaks about real partnership, about what it means to stand beside someone, not behind them, it doesn't come across as commentary. It comes across as truth. The kind that makes people stop. The kind that makes them compare. And the kind that leaves Trump exposed, whether he wants to admit it or not. Because no matter how many flags he waves or how many rallies he holds, the world can see the difference. Michelle and Barack built something based on respect. Trump built something based on image. And every time they're shown side by side, that contrast becomes even more brutal. Melania doesn't have to say anything. Her silence is louder than any speech. And the more she distances herself physically, emotionally, the more people question what's really behind the facade. Trump can call Michelle nasty. He can try to dismiss her speeches as divisive. But he can't replicate the one thing that matters most, authenticity. And that's the part that tears at him the most. Because in a world where Trump believes louder means stronger, Michelle proves, again and again, that real power doesn't have to raise its voice. This isn't new. Michelle Obama isn't the first powerful woman Trump has tried to tear down. She's just the one he can't seem to shake. Because when you look back, really look back, this has always been part of his pattern. Find a woman with a voice, a platform, and most of all, respect, and try to break her down piece by piece. He's not threatened by volume. He's threatened by presence, by poise, by women who don't need to scream to be heard. Start with Hillary Clinton. The moment she became a serious threat to his political ambitions, he didn't talk policy. He talked prison. Lock her up, he chanted, not because it was factual, but because it was effective. Reduce her legacy to a punchline. Turn public opinion into a stadium chant. Then came the journalists, the anchors, the moderators. Anyone who dared press him on real issues or fact-check his fiction was labeled a liar, a hater, or worse, disgusting, overrated, or his favorite fallback, nasty. He even mocked Carly Fiorina's face during the Republican primary. Let that sink in. A presidential candidate ridiculing a woman's appearance in a national interview, not for anything she said, but simply because he couldn't handle her presence on that stage. He did it with Kamala Harris, too, calling her angry, unlikable, even questioning whether she was qualified to be vice president, as if her resume wasn't leagues ahead of half the men in the room. It's not just a strategy, it's a reflex. And with Michelle Obama, that reflex goes into overdrive, because she breaks every mold he can't stand. She's not just smart, she's magnetic. She's not just eloquent, she's impactful. She doesn't just command respect, she radiates it. And what's worse, for him, she does it all without needing to tear anyone else down. Michelle's power isn't built on insults or conspiracy theories or shock value. It's built on lived experience, on empathy, on showing up with truth, not volume. And Trump? He's spent years trying to rattle her, bait her, provoke her into responding. But she never plays his game, because she knows something he never understood. Dignity is louder than rage. And every time she takes the high road, every time she focuses on issues instead of personalities, every time she chooses substance over spectacle, he loses control of the narrative. He can't drag her down, so he tries to drag her into the mud. But she never steps in. She doesn't need to. And that silence, that refusal to engage, it cuts deeper than any insult she could deliver. Because when Michelle speaks about leadership, about values, about family and integrity, She doesn't have to mention Trump for people to understand exactly who she's not talking about. The contrast is loud enough on its own, and maybe that's what rattles him most. He built an entire persona on being unavoidable, unignorable. And here's Michelle dismantling his ego without ever saying his name. It's not just political, it's personal, because deep down he knows Michelle Obama represents something he's never had and can never fake: authentic influence. Not the kind that comes from wealth or followers or a TV show, but the kind that comes from character, from consistency, from walking into a room and commanding attention, not because you demand it, but because people already respect you. So when he calls her nasty or accuses her of being divisive, it's not a critique, it's a confession that he knows she's everything he's not, and that no matter how loudly he screams, she'll never scream back. She doesn't have to, because she already won the argument without ever stepping onto the battlefield. Silence can be louder than any insult. It can echo longer, cut deeper, and ultimately reveal more truth than a barrage of angry words ever could. In the ongoing clash between Michelle Obama and Donald Trump, this silence stands out as her most devastating weapon, a weapon she wields without ever lifting a finger. Because here's the thing, when Trump lashes out, he expects a fight. He thrives on spectacle. He's ready for a shouting match, eager to trade jabs, spin conspiracy theories, and hog the spotlight in a 24/7 media cycle. That's his comfort zone, a back-and-forth arena where volume wins and whoever screams the loudest grabs the headlines. It's a formula he knows well and has used for decades. But Michelle doesn't take the bait. She never has. She doesn't meet his insults with more insults. She doesn't publicly scold him or pepper her speeches with snide remarks. She doesn't send out wave after wave of social media barbs. Instead, she maintains a calm and collected grace that leaves Trump flailing against thin air, left to hurl his favorite buzzwords: nasty, unfair, overrated, with no actual target to land on. And that's the beauty of her silent victory. By not engaging, Michelle forces Trump into a one-sided war. He's a man on a stage, yelling at an empty microphone, hoping someone, anyone, will step up and challenge him in a way he can handle. But Michelle simply walks away, focusing on her own mission. She's visiting schools, promoting healthy living, advocating for women's rights, speaking at conferences, and penning best-selling books that inspire people of all backgrounds. She's too busy building her legacy to bother with petty feuds. Yet somehow, despite her refusal to spar, she remains at the forefront of the conversation. There's a magnetic quality to her presence. People want to hear what Michelle has to say. Whether it's an interview, a public appearance, or even just a single statement, the world leans in. And in those moments, she doesn't need to mention Trump at all. Her composure and the respect she commands do the talking for her, drawing an unmistakable contrast between steady leadership and perpetual outrage. The irony? Trump, a man who built his name on commanding attention, finds himself overshadowed. He posts furious messages, holds rallies where he flings insults into the air, and gives interviews seething with resentment. Yet the louder he gets, the more apparent it becomes that Michelle doesn't have to respond to stay relevant. She's already ingrained in the public's trust in a way he can't replicate. Think about the power dynamics at play. Trump throws everything he has: accusations, nicknames, conspiracy theories, only to be met by silence. It's more than just ignoring him, it's denying him the reaction he so desperately craves. Bullies feed on engagement, on back-and-forth drama. They want to pull you onto their stage, under their spotlight, to play by their rules. But Michelle keeps her own spotlight, one defined by empathy, advocacy, and dignity. Trump can't turn that into a spectacle because it's built on genuine connection, not cheap theatrics. Then there's the public response. People notice when Michelle refuses to fight back, because in a culture that often celebrates conflict and calling people out, she's choosing a different path, one that says real strength doesn't have to shout. Whenever she does speak on broader issues like education, health, or voter engagement, her words resonate with a wide audience precisely because they aren't laced with vendettas or personal vendettas. They feel substantive, grounded in genuine concern for everyday people, and that resonates in a way petty insults never will. Michelle Obama never needed to raise her voice or hurl insults to make an impact. She never relied on melodrama or social media frenzies to cement her place in history. Instead, her quiet strength and authentic character have been her loudest statements, resonating in the hearts and minds of millions who look to her not as a politician's wife, but as a leader, role model, and a voice of steady reassurance in turbulent times. Meanwhile, Donald Trump built an entire public image on dominating the conversation. He stormed into politics with promises, provocations, and a flair for showmanship that demanded attention. And for a while, he got it. Headlines, rallies, sound bites. But the moment Michelle Obama spoke, she did something more powerful than any tweet storm could manage. She stayed calm, confident, and above the fray. She offered substance over spectacle, unity over division, and empathy over outrage. It's a contrast that couldn't be more glaring. Where Trump thrives on conflict and chaos, Michelle thrives on purpose and poise. He tries to drag powerful women into the spotlight so he can shout them down. She opts out of that battle altogether. And in doing so, she leaves him shouting into a void, revealing how little weight his outbursts truly carry when there's no one there to spar with him. Throughout these 10 sections, we've seen the repeated pattern. Trump attacks Michelle with the same hollow phrases he's used on countless other strong women. She responds not with insults, but by continuing her work, spreading messages of hope, encouraging people to vote, promoting healthier lifestyles, and writing books that connect with readers on a deeply personal level. She gives people a reason to believe in something better, rather than someone to blame. That's why, despite all the noise and drama, Michelle remains more popular than ever. It's why memes and clips showcasing her calm confidence continue to thrive online, while Trump's rants come and go in fleeting news cycles. People naturally gravitate toward authenticity. They lean in when they feel the words spoken are coming from genuine experience and genuine care. It's also a lesson for anyone watching this battle unfold. In a world often dominated by who can yell the loudest, Michelle's story is a reminder that real power can be quiet and unshakable. You don't have to answer every insult with a counter-insult. You don't have to fuel every fire started by someone desperate for attention. Sometimes, refusing to engage on those terms is the most devastating move of all, because when the dust settles, it's not the insults that linger, it's the integrity. It's the sense of trust built between a public figure and the people who believe in them. Michelle's trust with her audience isn't just about being likable, it's about embodying qualities, grace, consistency, empathy, that people crave in leadership. Over time, that kind of genuine connection outlives any headline-grabbing controversy. Meanwhile, Trump continues to circle back, hoping to land a blow that will stick. But each outburst only highlights the difference in their approaches, and every new insult only serves to amplify Michelle's steady resolve. It's a cycle he can't escape and a battle she doesn't even have to show up for in order to win. Ultimately, this story ends with a simple but powerful takeaway. No matter how loud the opposition may be, genuine confidence and quiet dignity are often the most enduring forms of influence. Michelle Obama personifies that perfectly. She doesn't have to shout down her critics or flood the news with explosive sound bites. Her deeds, her words, and her unwavering sense of self do all the talking for her. And that is what truly terrifies Donald Trump. He can never force her into a clash that follows his script. He can never strip away the respect she's earned. And he can't compete with a figure who leads without needing a fight to define herself. In the end, Michelle Obama's triumph isn't about crushing an opponent in a political feud. It's about showing that lasting influence. Genuine compassion and a commitment to higher principles can outshine any amount of bluster any day of the week. And if you're wondering who really won this war of words, look no further than the one who speaks less but says far more.